I've talked about this before, but it's news again this week. The massive increase in the early demise of especially middle aged white people, white Americans. The increase is accounted for primarily by a huge surge in the number of suicides and simultaneously a surge in the number of overdose deaths from opiate addiction, especially prescription drug opiate addiction. But there is a third cause of early demise among especially middle aged white people, but middle aged Americans in general, and that would be grain addiction, food addiction. I coined a phrase this week. I wish I could tell you I were happy about it, but I'm not. The phrase is flesh puddles. It refers to a style of obesity that I see more and more now, not simply mere obesity, pudgy fat people like me, and not simply morbid obesity, extremely overweight people, and not even just the people that I have called Michelin monsters, human manatees, seeming piles of tires. Flesh puddles are once worse than that in the sense that they are human beings who have lost all of the definition of the human body. Above the jawline, there's something that resembles a human face that's been inflated to 2 or 3 times its appropriate dimension. At the ends of the arms and legs are stubby, pudgy, fat little balloons that could be fingers and toes, but in between there's nothing at all that resembles the human form. These are people who have so inflated their bodies that their bodies no longer resemble human bodies, that they look like nothing so much as giant overstuffed trash bags. This is hideous. It's awful. And obviously, it's a huge source of premature mortality that we are actually seeing the average age of death go down in the United States for the first time in a century, probably longer than that. We've been engaged in successful death defiance with interruptions for religious wars since the Greeks and before. We've been beating back infant mortality, child mortality, and at the same time increasing the average age of mortality and extending the lifetime of the longest lived for 5,000 years. And in the last 100 years, we've been doing it remarkably, just amazingly well. And we've now successfully reversed that trend. Even as the modern causes of premature mortality, like automobile accidents, get fewer and fewer in number, homicides go down year by year if you don't live in the wrong place. All of the things that might kill us don't, and the things that shouldn't kill us do. But the thing that is most ironic is to be assassinated by our enormous wealth. The outrageous success of the capitalist system results in so much wealth that people can literally carry a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years consumption on their bodies to the point that they're carrying so much weight that they die from bearing the burden. They're carrying so much wealth on their bodies that they die, as if, like a Midas, having turned everything into gold, turning themselves into gold. Only instead of turning themselves into gold, they've turned themselves into fat. They lived off the fat of the land until they were the fat of the land. This is horrifying. I mean, truly horrifying. This is an inverted value structure and what comes of it. The persistent expression of an inverted value structure and what comes of it. And what is the nature of that inverted value structure? These folks are unfathered. The middle-aged suicides, the young, middle-aged, and old overdoses, and the vast numbers of grain addicts that you can see surrounding you everywhere. Not all of them are flesh puddles. Not all of them are manatees or Michelin monsters. Not all of them are morbidly obese, but an enormous number of us are overweight, and perhaps most tragically at all, our children, many of our children, even babies, are insanely, obscenely overweight. To see a 4 or 5 year old boy waddling around his own body fat, he can't actually walk. He swaggers like the villain in a 1950s Western movie, but he's not pretending to be bow-legged. He actually is bow-legged, not from a horse, but from his own fat thighs. This is horrifying. Practically speaking, it's un-American, and it's un-American because it is the philosophical expression of a people who no longer believe in the value and potency of self-reliance, who no longer believe that they are the masters of their own fate, the authors of their own futures. This is a portrait of a people who have given up. The suicides are the honest ones. The narcotics addicts and the alcoholics are less honest, but at least they are openly self-destructive, or at least we're willing to acknowledge their self-destruction. But the food addicts, the grain addicts, perhaps the least honest form of self-destruction that we can see around us, because they are as much engaged in suicide as the guy who eats a bullet. They're just eating the bullet slowly, one potato chip at a time. I find this abhorrent. This is abhorrent to everything I believe. This is the opposite of self-adoration. This is self-contempt expressed piecemeal and infinitely often and in infinite quantities, a self-scourging, not by piercings or tattooings or slicing your skin with razor blades or self-flagellation or any of the other things that we can say are obvious and more honest forms of self-scourging, but it's self-scourging nevertheless. It is the rejection of all of human potential by consuming so much fodder as to reject the human form. Man is the measure of all things. And we create people who cannot be measured. People who cannot be contained by their own skin, who spill out everywhere. I have no cure for this. If you are bearing too many pounds, whether it's 10 too many or 1,000 too many, if you go to self-adoration and look for a post called the High D Diet, I can show you how to lose that weight in exactly the same way that you put it on, slowly and gradually over time. Not a quick fix, not a overnight success, but something that if you change your habits and apply yourself day by day, the weight will come off the way it came on. But practically speaking, I have no cure for people who are committed to their underfathered misery, because there is no way to cure those people from the outside. The only cure is self-reliance. The only cure is self-adoration. The only cure is being self-responsible, living your values from the inside out. Obviously, the people I'm talking to are already doing that. I encourage you to continue with it, to get better at it, to share the most and the best of it with the people that you love the most and the best: your spouse, your children, your parents, your brothers and sisters, your friends, your family, your coworkers. You live for your own values. Everyone does. Most people are living for an inverted value structure, and therefore they achieve self-destruction rather than self-adoration. They achieve squalor rather than splendor. But you don't have to live their mistakes. And you can get better and better at living for your own values. And as you do that, you will evangelize your egoism to the people who see it, like it, and want it for themselves. This is the most and the best that you can hope for your fellow man, so my advice about their despair is don't despair over it. Live for your own values instead, and the ones who want to do better will learn better, and the others will perish, quickly, slowly. In the end, it doesn't matter. Your life matters. Live it to the utmost. and keep coming back to the Church of Splendor. My name is Greg Swan. I'll talk to you again next week. Bless you. Thank you.